So thank you so much for joining. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased that I'm here with you today. My name is José Ignacio Patiño. I'm from Leuven, and today I will share with you the preliminary results of an international collaboration, a work that we have done with my co-authors, Carla Badillo Urquiola for University of Notre Dame, and Professor Bart Prenell, which is about the strategic perspectives and recommendations from cybersecurity leaders who are also parents. So let's start immediately with the issue. We all understand the internet was not built with the best interests of children in mind. And I like to say that it's almost like a digital jungle, right? Not only for children, actually, also for adults, right? Because we are thinking of building a safe world in digital, but it's not even safe for us. So the challenge is quite big. Luckily for us, there are a lot of initiatives around the world in many different countries, creating a lot of resources and education material to try to educate parents on digital parenting. But to be honest, the parents are actually quite overwhelmed with this because of the pace of technological innovation. It's very difficult to catch up, even for professionals. But since we are here today to talk about children, let me tell you that where I live and work in Brussels, and in Flanders, there has been a study last year, and the average age to actually a children to own a smartphone is 8 years old, which I think is a little bit even earlier than here in South Africa. And people are very concerned. Of course, the parents are concerned. We are all here, very, very concerned what to do. And in that respect, we see a lot of changes also in legislation, like will come at the end of the year in Australia, as we know, to delay social media. So which advice should parents or policymakers follow? I will say it depends on who you listen to, probably, because on the one hand, you have Jonathan Haidt, and I suppose you all know him, with his super bestseller books, The Anxious Generation, in which he advocates all the issues that we have been discussing, some of them like mental issues, for children, and he advocates for no smartphones before high school. He also says no social media before 16, and we see this being implemented now in many countries. On the other hand, and we were very honored this morning to have our keynote speaker, even online, Sonia Livingstone. She takes a much more nuanced approach, respecting of children's rights, respecting of the evolving capacity of the children. So we have this conflicting view, and it's a little bit, for parents, also difficult to understand what to do. And I know that because I'm a father of two early adolescents, a girl and a boy, who actually are helping me a lot, with my research, to tell you the truth, because I share a lot of things with them. So if they are seeing me, hello to them. But in fact, I am a software engineer. I started my career in cybersecurity, working protect actually organizations, and then I moved into digital transformation and IT management, all these type of things. So I understand the benefits, and I also understand the risk. And for me, it was not even clear. That's why I started the research, which is to explore the perspective and insights of which I think are probably very knowledgeable people. They are not the technical experts. And in an earlier conference, I heard cybersecurity is about protecting computer security, but it's not only that. Today in cybersecurity, you talk about the human firewall. So there is a lot of actually education, on awareness and behaviors. So the questions I do ask, or we ask in this paper, are these cybersecurity leaders who are parents, how do they perceive the digital risks and challenges impacting children, families, and the overall bigger ecosystem, also in schools? And if they will have the opportunity to be listened to or to read that part of the transcript, that I did with my research, what will be the solutions or the key messages that they will prioritize for authorities, people in power? And finally, the last question is, okay, with all the actions, all the solutions that we are being implementing or considering, what they could consider could be maybe ineffective responses, right, or misguided. So I have interviewed 19 parents. They are 12 of them are chief information security officers. So they are responsible for the strategy and the operations to protect organizations. Some of these organizations, they have thousands of employees. 4 of them are co-founders of cybersecurity companies. So they are the chief executive officer, the employee number 1, or the the boss, no, on the company, or number two, a partner, and different people working as senior cybersecurity officials or even senior scientists working in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is really a broad field, so I wanted to have different perspectives. They work from different sectors, consulting, manufacturing. No, I will not go into that. Another criteria for recruitment and to interview them was that I wanted GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, to apply. So they are not all necessarily Europeans, but they work and live in Europe. Okay. And in total, there are 5 mothers and 14 fathers, around 45 years old average. Okay. And in total, they are parents of 44 children. I did not interview children here, but it's interesting to say that excluding babies, there is a representation from all the age groups and where they go into the school. So I have done these semi-structured interviews in the last year. The main prompt was indeed asking them, imagine that decision makers will listen to you. What will you tell them regarding online safety for children and youth? And what improvements will be needed? Depending on the answers, I may actually change the follow-up question. But one of the questions was also, for example, what about banning or restricting, these smartphone policies in schools? To analyze the data, I use the reflective thematic analysis, in which me as a researcher, I'm a tool. Okay, so I am supposed to bring my own knowledge and expertise and personality and maybe bias also, but this is a feature of this research. And you go through data familiarization, you record the interview, you transcribe it, you do pre-analysis, and then you do your own reflections, and at the end you generate themes, after coding, and you write the paper, right? It's an iterative process. But I want to take most of my intervention just to share with you these preliminary findings, which are around 3 main topics, right? Issues, solutions, and their strategic vision. So I will start covering what they think about developmental and psychological impacts on children, and then about the social engineering, manipulation risk, and broader societal consequences. As solutions, I will be sharing with you what they said about critical thinking and social engineering awareness, and I will conclude with the ineffective misguided solution. So first issue on the developmental and psychological impact on children. Some of them liken this to smoking or drinking. No? That's what they said, because they have seen or they consider that there are heavy potential consequences for children, especially for children with difficulties. That was also what they mentioned. And what they said, for one of the parents or the participants, even for his own children, he gave the smartphones at 12 years old, and he considered it was negative. I will come back to this later, because he will also reflect on the solutions. Social engineering. So participants raise concern about how online interactions can exploit, online vulnerabilities, and they think that this risk goes beyond individual children or individuals, right? Sometimes it can also even put at risk democracy. That you do not know how to fact check. It could be at risk. And another one just said an anecdote how he was in a train station and someone took advantage of him. And saying that the same happens online, right? So on the solutions, I will focus on critical thinking. So the message is we need to increase awareness of social engineering techniques to foster critical thinking. So they advocate for campaigns, which are actually learning opportunities, but structured from an early education until secondary school, because this takes time. One of the participants mentioned, for the children, she says, pay attention. What you see online may not exist, but in the school, this message is not shared. That's at least what she mentioned. And clearly, that there is maybe not enough efforts to do this. There are many initiatives, but maybe not enough in education. And the key message is the education must address the human factors that make individuals vulnerable to digital deception. And one suggestion was that the schools could draw inspiration from disciplines such as history or philosophy. Because one parent, for example, mentioned how the history teacher learned the children know how to fact check, for example. So the wrong reasoning, also the sophism, so important. And to conclude with the preliminary findings, how to avoid ineffective or misguided responses to digital risk. There is this tension between our desire to protect our children and then the recognition that maybe prohibition may not be effective or realistic. And also they raise concerns about the moral bias or the moral consistency, of bans. which is also incompatible with the digital future. And this parent that I told you now, that he said that the experience had been negative for his children, when I asked, okay, will you do something different? He said, okay, I will try to convince them to delay access, but I will not forbid, because if you forbid something, you make it sexy. And also, remember, this guy is cybersecurity leader, okay, responsible for an organization, and he's saying, we don't think we have the technical capabilities to really do that. And if you cannot technically do it, you should not write it in the policy, right? And sometimes you fail, you learn. You cannot convince them of everything, so it's a process, it's a learning process. And also a couple of warnings, just against relying too heavily on technical solutions. There is no parental control, no technical control that will allow you to fall into that trap, except you start looking at things, right? This is key message. And also a warning about not using the digital identity for governments. Even this senior researcher considered that this privacy-preserving digital identity systems, which sometimes we see from policymakers, yes, we are going to implement, it's going to be okay. In fact, this could be quite negative. It could actually damage our rights as citizens. So what are the implications? The world is digital and it will become even more digital in the future. So technical controls are needed, but are not sufficient. Delaying access may actually offer a short-term protection, but it does not address the underlying challenges. And we need to find approaches adapted to digital life today. And if I told you about this metaphor of the smoking and drinking, I think a better metaphor probably will be one of swimming, right? Because these digital literacy and online safety skills, I think, should be framed as essential life skills. And the same way that banning swimming pools or keeping children away from water is not the solution. Okay, keeping them away, okay, probably it's not. And definitely we cannot ban the kids because the parents don't know it themselves. I'm not teaching you anything here. You have heard this before. And actually, parental digital literacy is a global challenge. This has been also, in studies, for example, from Quayum in Norway. So the question I would like to ask is, okay, do the current efforts we are making do sufficiently address the lack of awareness, basic cybersecurity knowledge, and critical thinking? We need to ensure, right, that we answer positively to this question. So for future research, how to maximize the benefits and while managing the risks, digital parenting, even if it's not universally applicable because not all children have parents or they have a good parents or prepared parents, is part of the solution. And I think it will be useful to explore the perspectives of these people, this target group, because they can have a unique experience of translating the professional knowledge with their own digital parenting practices. So in conclusion, I think we have to acknowledge that early access to smartphone or social media raises valid concerns because of these addictive design features that can have real negative consequences for children. Restricting access in a specific context can make sense, but banning is not a sustainable solution. And I'm referring to, for example, schools, right? When I ask the question to them, they say, yeah, well, why do they need in the classroom? You listen, no distractions, it can help the children. And digital engagement, of course, carries risks. It is a process, and we need to think of swimming as a life social skill. And we need to invest enough consistently from primary to secondary in critical thinking, online safety, and digital awareness, which resonates with what maybe Mark said yesterday. I think he called it digital soft skills. But for me, this is giving hope because we don't need to be all cybersecurity leaders or technical experts. This is things, parents, also as Nancy mentioned, can help. For me, also, another question I have is, okay, digital access should be a right in a world where, we are trying to prevent children to have access to or to protect them. I don't know about that. So this concludes my presentation. I hope you understood because I went pretty fast, I think. But I want to acknowledge the research group where I work is the Computer Security and Industrial Cryptography in KU Leuven, which is funded by the Flemish government. And obviously, I'm very grateful for all the trust and confidence of the participants. I talked to them for 1 hour, 45 minutes, where they actually open up, what they think about and also Professor Vincent Remen for his supervision. So, and also, of course, my co-authors. If any question, if any you like to support or you want to just clarify some things, I will be very happy to connect with you. Thank you.